Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source. Thank you for joining us. Always appreciate you being with us on these Sundays. Tennessee, you know, it's a team you're supposed to beat, and they took care of business yesterday. They rolled South Alabama 60-14. Game had everything. 2 safeties, a heck of a kickoff return from Velus Jones, and Tennessee lit them up early and kept the foot on the gas. We'll discuss all of that. We'll also talk Tennessee basketball, which, woof, that was ugly yesterday. Will they get off the schneid? And nobody wants to stay on the schneid. Will they get off the schneid today against North Carolina? So we got football, we got basketball, we got it all. Let's jump right into it. First segment of our program today is brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. You know, in the South, we have a long tradition of turning to, leaning on, and supporting our neighbors. When you have a legal issue, do the same. Turn to your East Tennessee neighbors at the Garza Law Firm. They'll have your back in Knoxville courts a lot better than some attorney from Birmingham or Memphis will. These guys know the local system. They know the local people in the court system. Don't put yourself behind the 8 ball by going out of town if you need an attorney. Stay in town with your neighbors. The Garza Law Firm and Marcos Garza. Give them a shout. Check them out online, garzalaw.com. All right, let's welcome in the first round of panelists we have for today. Bob Hodge, longtime sports writer. Thanks for being here. Right, that was kind of a.
I said good morning.
Yeah, but it was kind of a good morning. All right.
Hi.
There, that's much better. That's the Bob we were used to. From WNML, AM and FM, that would be 99.1 The Sports Animal.
Hello.
Jimmy Himes and Josh Ward.
Hey, John.
There we go. And right down there, longtime sports writer Chuck Cavallari.
Man, it's great to be here, John.
Give us the Charleston greeting.
Hey, hello.
No, I don't think that's the Charleston greeting. Charles Demetrius Cavalaris III. All right. Tennessee had a bit of a do-nothing game, as I said yesterday. You know, you're supposed to crush this team. But they did. And this is the first time in a long time that I can think of when every team you were supposed to beat on the schedule, so far, still 1 game to play, you're taking care of business, you know, as Elvis would say. And in Heupel's offense, you've done it in a flash, taking care of business in a flash. Your thoughts on yesterday's game? I mean, there's not much to get excited about beating that kind of an opponent, but by gosh, if it's on the schedule, you're supposed to take care of it, and they did.
I think you go back to the Tennessee Tech game and remember they led 28-0 at the first half, and you were kind of, it's kind of rickety looking and everything. And this one, to me, was very smooth, very prompt. You went out there, you killed them. And I think South Alabama is a better team than Tennessee Tech, and you just totally rolled. So I think it points to this team has gotten better because you played a lesser opponent earlier in the season, and you didn't look that good. Still beat them bad, but, I mean, that was a level down below you as far as even the competitiveness of the league they're in. So I give Tennessee points for looking better in this blowout compared to the one earlier in the year.
Okay.
If you look at going into the weekend, there were 44 unranked teams that beat ranked teams, and a dozen of those were top 10 teams that unranked teams beat. There have been more than a dozen FCS teams that beat FBS teams. So there are a lot of times when teams slip up and they're not focused. Well, this Tennessee team stayed focused. I think not only are they focused, I think they're having fun. I think they enjoy getting out there. I think they enjoy seeing if they can score 50 points on somebody. I think that's what's kept them going. I think they like each other. They like the staff. And I'm not so sure I could have said that about last year's group or the previous tenure. So I think that plays into it. I think they're having a good time.
Yeah. Josh.
Yeah, they're having fun, and fans are having fun watching this team. And the other thing is the first quarter. I mean, you talk about the way they come out the first quarter and first half. I mean, it's been all season long. It's not just against weaker opponents like South Alabama. It's coming out strong against Georgia and Alabama. I think that goes into preparation and to the buy-in from the players to, hey, let's go out there and do what we can to take care of business. And the offense from Josh Heupel, I think it shows what they're capable of doing and what weaker opponents are not capable of keeping up with. South Alabama had no chance to keep up with Tennessee in that game, and Tennessee kept it going, which made it the lopsided score in the end.
Yeah, didn't you score on like 8 straight possessions or something?
Yeah.
I mean, you kept your foot on the gas. And guys, this was a classic trap game to me, because when you look at the schedule, just about every team, it's human nature, is going to have a clunker at some point in the season where you just can't get out of your own way. This was just the opposite of that. This shows me what they're trying is working. And I think it does. They're having fun, but it all goes back to how they prepare and practice and then getting out there and having fun.
The clunker, if you're looking for one this year, you could say, well, they should have beaten Pittsburgh, because if not for the penalties, if you start Hendon Hooker, and all that's true. But you were an underdog in that game, and we went into that season saying that's a 50-50 game. There has been no Georgia State this year. There has been no Butch Jones losing to South Carolina and Vanderbilt.
No Charlotte, where you're just playing a close game.
14-3 against Charlotte late. There's been no shootout 75-74 against Troy. They've pretty much, and I wonder, Josh, you and I were talking before the show, and we've said this on air this year. Don't know what the ceiling is yet for Josh Heupel's offense, but I do think this has raised the floor. That doesn't mean they're never going to deal with an upset. It's college football. Stuff happens. But I do think the floor for this program has raised a little bit, because that offense is so difficult, as you say, against lesser teams.
Yeah, and even think about a loss, the 34-7 loss to Kentucky last year. That's not happening with this offense with what it's capable of doing, or just getting shut out, most likely in a game like Arkansas last year. So you're always going to be competitive, I think, in those games, and you're probably going to have a leg up, because athletically Tennessee should have an advantage against the middle to lower part of the SEC when you look into the future. And then at South Alabama, there should be no competition, and there wasn't last night.
Well, 8 years ago, Tennessee's playing South Alabama. They beat them by 7. South Alabama's throwing in the end zone at the end of the game.
Yeah. Brian Randolph, who used to be on the show, I think, picked off the last pass. Yeah.
And so that just tells you that, and I agree with Josh, that with this offense, if you get a mediocre to below average defense, they're going to trounce you.
That's another reason for optimism if you're a Tennessee fan looking forward.
Yeah.
And speaking about defense, Tennessee's defense, I think, has flown under the radar because you've given up a lot of points in several games. I mean, so, you can't say they didn't give up in the 40s. But this defense has played so much better than I thought it was capable of playing. South Alabama may not be the good gauge, but even when they're giving up points, they're competing. Where I think in the past, you sit there and you watch Jeremy Pruitt's defenses, and he was supposed to be a genius, but you watched his defenses and you go, okay, what are you trying to do? Well, with this defense, you know what they're trying to do.
I think his own players were saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we trying to do?
And so I think the offense has been great. The defense, even though the stats don't support it, has been a bit underrated.
60-14, you beat South Alabama last night. If Jeremy Pruitt's your coach, are you anywhere near that kind of a score?
21-14.
Yeah.
They're throwing it
21
late in the game.
21-10 or something. I mean, the other thing, this is a team that was coming off a rough month. 4 straight ranked opponents. You had arguably the game that you had less of a chance in than any other on the schedule was the previous week against number 1 Georgia. And yet they come out, they hit it right off the bat, but they also cleaned up areas you'd want them to clean up. 8 of 11 on third down conversions. South Alabama just 1 of 16. There's your defense you're talking about. Tennessee 5 of 5 in the red zone. That had been an issue. And again, South Alabama isn't a great test, but you're wanting to improve in these areas. There you go. 250 yards rushing, 4 different players with the rushing touchdown. So you got the run game going again. 311 yards passing, so you're balanced. Another 100-yard day from Cedric Tillman. The things they wanted to focus on, they took care of. Normally, I'm not going to say woohoo over that kind of a win, because Tennessee in the last few years hasn't really beaten. They haven't. If you got a tomato can in front of you, you're supposed to crush it. They haven't always crushed it. They crushed it this time.
They also had 13 tackles for loss. In the previous 2 games, they'd had 3 each against
it had dropped off.
Yeah, but they changed the line of scrimmage.
And one more thing, real quick: how many players did you see making plays? I mean, how many times did you see somebody? Wow, boy, that's a good play. I mean, I don't care who it is. You're out there getting the job done.
And you also had a lot of different guys out there.
Exactly.
So credit to them by the fourth quarter, and they didn't do this earlier in the season. We were wondering, they let guys play later into games. It's like, well, why are you doing this so late in the game? They were bringing in the backups there to start the fourth quarter. So I thought that was an all-around, it's what it was supposed to be. They did it. Kudos for doing it. Yeah.
That's the whole point of it, yes.
We got a lot more to come. Up next, what's greater in a game like that? The chance of rewarding your players and letting them have some fun, or the chance of injury. You saw Cade Mays get hurt early in that game. And then also, should Tennessee have slowed things down a little bit late? Should they have practiced that 4-minute offense, so to speak? We'll discuss all that and much more to come on the Sports Source. Come on back.